Reagan felt that the way to deal with Gorbachev was to try to engender trust, but at the same time keep the pressure on Gorbachev to give things up.
On December 8, 1987, Gorbachev comes to Washington to sign the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. But there are no concessions related to SDI. Reagan's strategy of peace through strength has paid off.
We have listened to the wisdom in an old Russian maxim, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. Mr. General Secretary, though my pronunciation may give you difficulty, the maxim is, doверяй, no проверяй, trust but verify.
Но значение этого...
На каждой встрече вы это повторяете.
You repeat that at every meeting.
A few months later, Gorbachev invites Reagan to visit the Soviet Union.
You had a scene that you never expected to see. Ronald Reagan in Red Square walking alongside his friend, the leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev. And the reporters come up to Reagan, and they're also astounded by what they're seeing. They never could have imagined it.
Do you still think you're in an evil empire, Mr. President?
No. I can only tell you that we have both agreed that talking to each other instead of about each other is the way to keep out of trouble.
In December of 1988, Ronald Reagan meets his friend Mikhail Gorbachev for the last time as President of the United States. The Soviet Union is still in power. Eastern Europe still suffers behind the Iron Curtain, and the Berlin Wall still stands. But Ronald Reagan has laid the groundwork for a global transformation.
Was Ronald Reagan responsible for the end of the Cold War? We really don't know yet.
It's entirely possible if someone else had been there, it would have happened too. I don't think it would have happened as quickly because there was no one else that was doing it in the way he was doing it.
I think Reagan had an enormous impact. He was not the only president to stand up to the Soviets. I think every president from Truman deserves some of the credit. But Reagan did something unique. He delegitimized the Soviet Union. These were not two superpowers playing this big power game in the world. This is one that stood for good and human rights and decency, and one that stood for repression and aggression and horrendous values.
I think that Reagan was able to end the Cold War and change our relationships with the Soviets because he believed that our policy for the last 40 or 50 years hadn't worked, and he had the strength of his own beliefs to say, I'm going to do it my way. And he did. And he was right.
He made some mistakes, but because of his achievements, the Cold War ended faster and more on peaceful terms than anyone could have imagined.
We meant to change a nation, and instead, we changed the world. Goodbye. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.